Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the CIVIC Class of 2020's closing program session. My name is Sarah Jane Kirkland and I have the honor of serving as CIVIC's President and CEO. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Amasa Smith, Director of Programming and Communications, and Megan Shuford, Program Associate for the CIVIC Scholars Program. Amasa and Megan will be assisting us today with the technical aspect of the webinar, and you can reach them by using the chat function at the bottom of your screen. I would be remiss if I did not mention the hard work and dedication of Amasa and Megan. They have been so hardworking and passionate and dedicated to the CIVIC Class of 2020's success, and we are so fortunate to have them as part of the CIVIC team. When you next see them out and about, please let them know how much you appreciate their hard work and their attention to detail. I want to take you all on a bit of a journey, a pre-COVID-19 journey, when it was okay to shake hands and Zoom was a word we used to describe the speed of the traffic on the newly expanded I-64. Organizations were hosting events and had the strategy of filling each and every seat in the house. And like me, I'm sure that many of you could never have imagined that your co-workers for the next couple of months would end up being your husband, your 8-year-old daughter, and your crazy dog. The plan back in the fall was to close out the 2020 program year with a lovely lunch at the Westin Hotel, where the alumni would be gathered to welcome and congratulate the CIVIC class with open arms and a standing ovation. I can't even get close to replicating the look and feel of that event today that we had painted in our minds, but I can do is reassure the CIVIC class that my commitment does not change. I will do all that I can to make sure that I plug you into the amazing and dynamic network of decision makers. Our alumni will attest that today marks the beginning and not the end of your CIVIC journey. For our alumni and community leaders in the audience, thank you for being here. And now I present to you the CIVIC class of 2020. They are the most diverse, resilient, resourceful, patient, committed, inspiring, and fun group of individuals that I think you will ever have the pleasure of meeting. Our program year commenced in Williamsburg, where the class got to know each other. They enjoyed a surprise visit from the young Thomas Jefferson and were escorted by fife and drum and torchbearer through the streets of colonial Williamsburg to enjoy a dinner in a local tavern. We should not forget the fun in the courtyard with the conga line, and who knew that Captain Baker was in a band? In November, the class enjoyed a tour of Naval Station Norfolk and an afternoon conversation about resiliency. And in December, we spent the day in Portsmouth. We had the pleasure of hearing from the mayor, John Reinhardt, and members of the nonprofit community who set the stage for the afternoon poverty simulation, a day in the life of the working poor. This impactful day demonstrated to 50 executives the challenges that so many people in our region face and opened up an impactful dialogue about ways we can all make a difference in our community. In January, we were whisked to outer space with presentations from the director of NASA, Clayton Turner, and the highlight of the day, a very special fireside chat with Christine Darden, one of the hidden figures, a spellbinding presentation that had us all lined up for photographs and autographs. We should not forget Omar's Carriage House, who swooped in and took care of us all for lunch that day. If you were there, you will know that little hiccup we are talking about. But remember, what happens in CIVIC stays in CIVIC. We learned more about the business of nonprofits that day as well, a discussion on the talent pipeline in Hampton Roads, and in hindsight, what an important conversation that was as we work on the economic recovery from this pandemic. In February, we felt like the class had really gotten to know each other and the class was well underway in their community impact initiative work. We enjoyed a visit to the Swift Center where we learned about wastewater and how it can be processed and returned back to the aquifer and how this could be the solution for the region's land subsidence issue. The afternoon focused on the economic development and emergency preparedness. I don't think any of us would have guessed that this would conclude our physical programming. And what an appropriate topic to end on, emergency preparedness. CIVIC has always been known for timely and topical conversations. Since then, we've shifted gears and we've presented virtual coffee connections and programming for the alumni and class combined. We've talked about the challenges of the pandemic on the education system, heard from Barry Duvall, President and CEO for the State Chamber. Joel Andrus and Ross Grogg gave us a wonderful update on the General Assembly, and Secretary Lane rounded up the session with an overview of the implications of COVID-19 at the state level. Just last week, we were honored to have Doug Smith talk about the 757 Recovery Forum and John Martin recap the Business Leaders Survey. Stay tuned as we begin to reach out to the class of 2020 and alumni to engage you all in the recovery efforts for the region. And just this morning, we heard from healthcare and nonprofit industries on the collaborative work that they have been doing in the region during this pandemic. For those alumni on the call today, I'm sure that you will remember your group project experience. Over the last couple of years, we've been tweaking the process, and this year we really wanted to knock the projects out of the park. They're no longer called group projects. We refer to them as community impact initiatives. These initiatives each have community leader sponsors, and we've been so incredibly grateful to the following individuals: Jim Spohr, Paul Robinson, Ann Phillips, Skip Stiles, Tom France, John Martin, Matt Baumgarten, Stephen Jones, Whitney Lester, and Sean Avery. This year's community impact initiatives were focused on broadband, resiliency, the mega region, hospitality, and Campus 757. Just one of these topics has the potential to have a major impact on the region, but all five, this is a true demonstration of the power of connection and collaboration. Now it is my pleasure to introduce to you the CIVIC Class of 2020 who will present their work. Our first initiative to be presented today is from the Broadband group. This initiative was part of a larger collaborative group with the work of RVA 757 Connect's Broadband Committee and part of a larger analysis and plan to advance the interconnectedness and economic performance of the two regions. An important part of this is knowing what resources and assets are already in our region and creating a comprehensive inventory, which was the main focus for the Broadband group. This was a continuation of a project from last year, where the CIVIC Class of 2019 completed a project focused on the new undersea fiber optic cables landing in Virginia Beach and the potential for a fiber ring in our region. I think we can all attest that COVID-19 has really brought to light the importance of interconnectivity and the impact that can have on our economy. The members of this team include Winter Bender, Michael Daniels, Brian Garrison, Jose Gutierrez, Benita Harris, Captain Bob Holmes, Gucci Malfitano, Rear Admiral Chip Rock, Captain Jason Schneider, Julie Williams-Byrd. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce to you the group spokesperson, John Malfitano. He's the program manager for the Institute for Veterans and Military Families, Syracuse University. And Gucci, the floor is yours.
Sarah Jane, thank you so much. And good afternoon to everyone. I must start out by confessing that I feel a little naked today because I don't have my CIVIC Class of 2020 Best Class Ever name tag on. However, just because we're being recorded, I want to assure you that I actually am dressed, at least from the waist up. So, welcome to Broadband. And Amesa, first slide, please. Welcome to our project. Good afternoon. My name is John Malfitano. I'm a proud member of the CIVIC Class of 2020, most virus-free and Zoom-capable class ever, and your presenter for our Civic Impact Initiative on broadband resources. Slide, please, Amesa. You were introduced previously, but here's the names of folks on our team. Delighted to introduce you to them. We had voted unanimously to do 10 one-minute introductions of ourselves, followed by 5 minutes of very personal, embarrassing questions from you. But Mr. Spohr gave us the big thumbs down, and he gets 51% of the vote. So we'll move on. Slide, please, Amesa. Before we kick things off, our team would like to acknowledge some of the folks that have contributed their time, effort, and knowledge to our initiative. Our sponsor, Mr. Jim Spohr, President and CEO of Reinvent Hampton Roads and co-chair of the Broadband Committee for the Richmond, Virginia Hampton Roads Collaborative. Mr. Jeff Biku, President and CEO of Broadband Telecom Services and Regional Broadband Project Manager for the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission. Jeff is the subject matter expert on broadband in the region. Mr. Dan Bell, President and CEO of the Hampton Roads Innovation Collaborative and a proud member of the CIVIC Class of 2009, second best class ever. Dan was instrumental in making introductions for us at the outset of our project, which provided us traction in fact-finding and research for our inventory. The CIVIC Class of 2019, third best class ever. Our initiative complements the good work that they completed this time last year with their project that focused on the then new undersea fiber optic cables landing in Virginia Beach and the potential for a fiber ring in our region. And last, but certainly not least, our hats off to Miss Sarah Jane and Amesa and Megan for facilitating, catering, cheerleading, and always pointing us in the right direction if we began to veer off course. Thank you to one and all. Slide, please, Amesa. So, okay, first to set the scene. Imagine having to drive your child to a fast food restaurant or to a bus stop where the bus driver is carrying a MiFi or mobile Wi-Fi device just so she can go online and finish her homework. Or missing an opportunity, an important work meeting, or embarrassing yourself professionally because your internet service is weak or unreliable. Or God forbid, trying to survive during these times of self-isolation without my personal line of hair care products from Amazon, or Mexican food from Uber Eats, or the social bastion of virtual happy hours. In Virginia, although about 97% of our residents can get internet with either wireline or wireless services, about 660,000 lack access to broadband or high-speed internet. 16% of our population is underserved with minimum service options available. And approximately 30% of residents have the big zilch, no internet service at all. Just this morning, Dr. Romero from EVMS spoke about the changing environment, and high-speed internet is an increasingly critical resource that ensures equal access to services, including education, public safety, healthcare, and employment. The COVID-19 pandemic has multiplied that need as people shelter in place and have become even more dependent on this type of technology for their livelihood and well-being. Slide, please, Amesa. In order to make progress, it's key to show what resources already exist. So, under the direction of the Richmond, Virginia Hampton Roads Collaborative's Broadband Committee, our Civic Impact Initiative team was assigned to research and compile a comprehensive inventory of internet services, data centers, speeds, exchanges, and related broadband infrastructure currently available in both the Hampton Roads and Richmond areas. This initiative is part of a larger analysis and plan to advance the interconnectedness and economic performance of those two regions. This infrastructure, composed of existing fiber, internet service providers, data centers, exchanges, etc., is essential to the systematic development of the region's digital architecture. All of our research was completed so that an understanding of the current state could enable further gap analysis to inform deliberate investment so as to fully realize the economic benefits of a digitally connected smart region. Slide, please, Amesa. Now, you may be aware that there are 4 transatlantic undersea cables which will bring a combined 500 terabits per second connectivity to our region by 2021. Slide, please, Amesa. 2 of them, Maria from Bilbao, Spain, and Brusa from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, are already in existence, with Dunant and SAEX planned from France and South America, respectively. Slide, please, Amesa. Also of relevance, The Regional Connectivity Ring, or RCR, is a proposed 127-mile municipal fiber optic broadband network to initially connect 5 cities, 5 Southside cities, Chesapeake, Norfolk, Portsmouth, Suffolk, and Virginia Beach to those transatlantic cables. Consisting of dark fiber, which are units of unused and unallocated fiber, it represents a high-capacity backbone for current and future public and private sector applications that rely on the transmission of data. And that's all information from the Regional Connectivity Ring Master Plan of 2018. Slide, please, Amesa. Here's a depiction of that ring in our 5 Southside cities. The ring will leverage existing municipal networks across those 5 Southside cities. Virginia Beach, the NGN, and Norfolk INET have the most robust fiber infrastructure currently. Portsmouth is well positioned to move forward with its deployment due to previous planning and budget allocation. And Suffolk and Chesapeake will have significantly higher time to launch and build out costs. Regardless, ongoing modernization of existing fiber will be needed to meet projected needs of 100 megabits per second upload or 10 megabits per second download rates. Slide, please, Mesa. And future expansion is planned to the Peninsula and Eastern Shore and ultimately to Richmond and Northern Virginia. The RCR leverages the transatlantic cables to serve as the foundation for the development of a smart region, benefiting both the public and private sector, as well as expanding access to all citizens, especially those that may be underserved. Slide, please, Amesa. Also of note, in 2018, the Hampton Roads PDC established the Regional Broadband Steering Committee to guide and advocate for this critical effort. Slide, please, Amesa. And just last year, the CIVIC Class of 2019 completed a study that focused on the then new 2 undersea fiber optic cables landing in Virginia Beach and the potential for a fiber ring in our region. Slide, please, Mesa. Now, we were tasked to come up with an inventory, and as you'll see from the next few slides, that's exactly what we did. Slide, please, Mesa. We gathered information about data centers. Slide, please. We made really fancy Excel spreadsheets. Slide, please. And really cool diagrams of their locations. Slide. We conducted inventories of ISPs and IXPs in the region. Slide, please. To include their max download and data exchange rates. So as you can see, it's some pretty dry stuff. So instead of bringing you through a list of all available data centers and ISPs alphabetically, their phone numbers and addresses, our team has collated all of that information to present to Mr. Spohr as part of our white paper. Instead, we'd like to use the remainder of our time here to summarize our findings and give a couple of recommendations. Slide, please, Mesa. At the Hampton Roads Chamber's 2019 U.S. Congressional Forum at the Hilton, Norfolk, the Maine, in November of 2019, Congressman Rob Whitman and Congresswoman Elaine Loria both mentioned the broadband initiative in their comments as being critical to the region with regards to education, business, healthcare, and agriculture. Bottom line, based on our research and inventory, we believe that our region is well positioned to transform itself into one of the country's foremost digital hubs. We base our position on the following. First, the presence of our 4 transatlantic undersea fiber optic cables offers a unique opportunity, and we can and should learn lessons from areas that have already incorporated those type of capabilities, such as in Miami, which used a similar transatlantic cable a few years earlier. Second, HRPDC's Regional Connectivity Ring Master Plan already provides a great blueprint for success. Third, with the admitted exception of data centers, especially in the center region, I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name of it. Forgive me, not the South Side, the Peninsula. There it is, the Peninsula. With the exception of the Peninsula, we have a number of data centers for which there seems to be a paucity for whatever on the Peninsula, but the initial infrastructure is already largely in place. Fourth, funding and intercity and county coordination and collaboration will continue to be a challenge, probably no surprise. And finally, as demonstrated by our current COVID crisis, continuity of operations, both last mile infrastructure and non-broadband solutions certainly need to be addressed. Slide, please, Amesa. And now for our recommendations. A governance must be established, much like the Planning District Commission's Broadband Steering Committee, which was composed of 5 Southside city managers and 5 Southside council members, but in this case, much larger and more inclusive of the areas it will be expanded to in future phases of the master plan. This governance will ensure structure and seamless public-private coordination, as well as cooperation throughout the region and ultimately all the way to Richmond, Northern Virginia. Does HRPDC have what it needs, and is the private sector committed to this approach? The middle mile must be addressed. Middle mile, for those that might not be familiar, is an industry term that describes the network infrastructure that connects last mile or local networks to other network service providers, major telecommunications carriers, and the greater internet. It does not typically connect the majority of end users. What is the value proposition for these end users? What is their pain point? Project success is predicated on providing service to all end users. And who owns the last mile? Government, private sector, or a partnership of the two? This remains critical to fully realizing the potential of a smart region. Partnerships must be established with other markets to mitigate data center concerns. We inventory data centers because they've been identified as an important element for smart regions. But resiliency in terms of sea level rise and hurricane-driven power outages were raised as strikes against locating data centers in the 757. How does the region overcome this? And last, but certainly not least, there will have to be a practical assessment of COVID-19 budget impacts and funding strategies. Beyond the obvious public health crisis, the pandemic will have dramatic impact on tax revenues and the overall economy. Reduced tax revenues will force tough strategic decisions on public services, as well as bring to light the subjectivity regarding what one city might consider a core service versus another's interpretation. We also have to ask and have thoughtful responses to hard questions such as, how might this initiative be impacted as government budgets are revised, and how high of a priority will this initiative be as we enter into a new normal following easing of restrictions and reintegration? Slide, please, Amesa. And could you also activate the remaining members of our team as presenters for our Q&A period? Thank you. That completes our presentation. I thank you for your virtual attention. We are open to your questions. And I do have a tacit agreement with my teammates that they should feel free to chime in and rescue me in the very likely event that I am unable to answer or formulate an intelligent response.
Well, Gucci, you did a phenomenal job, and we are really appreciative. I know that Jim Spoor and many others in the community are going to be using that white paper every single day. We do actually have some questions for you all. If our folks who were on that committee, there may be a button at the bottom of your screen that allows you to share your video. Hello, Jose. So if you can all share your videos so we can see your faces. Hey, Bonita, great to see you. And there's Brian and Michael and Jason and Admiral Rock and Bob Holmes. It is great to see you all, and you all get the chance in a few moments to see the gentleman who is behind the voice behind the presentation. That is Gucci right there. And hey, Julie's there too. It's good to see your faces. Thank you all so much. I'm actually going to promote one of our members of our civic board, actually, who has a question for you all. Chuck, I'm actually going to hit allow talk and unmute, and you should be able to ask your question live right now.
Yeah, so my question was related to the unique opportunities and challenges in our region as compared to other regions that are pursuing broadband initiatives similar to what we're pursuing in our region. So what's unique about our region, both from an opportunity and from a challenge perspective? And I also want to ask Gucci about his hair care products, but that can wait.
I love it.
That's during the virtual happy hour.
So who would like to take that question? All right, Bonita, thank you so much.
I can start it, but I would love my teammates to back me up because they know a whole lot more about this issue than I do. But there are some interesting things about our region that we have discussed that are benefits and challenges for us. As Gucci mentioned, one of the challenges of data centers coming to our area is the exposure to hurricanes and coastal flooding. So I think most of us are familiar with that some of the data centers feel like it's not worth the business risk. Miami, but it's not an obstacle. I mean, it's not a non-overcomable option because areas like Miami, that's also right on the coast, have done very well with developing their area into a data center market. And we can study those for some success, for some best practices. They have an undersea cable that comes right into Miami as well. And that's a model that shows that our area can also grow very well in that area. Also, Norfolk has an international airport, so that's also a big plus for our area. One of Northern Virginia's advantages is that it has an international airport. Dulles is right next to the market, and you can fly in and out from just about anywhere in the world directly, so that's a huge travel advantage. One of the challenges is also that Richmond is a very similar area to ours, and it doesn't have the same environmental risks of hurricanes and everything. So so those are some of the plus and minuses I'm aware of, and I welcome my team to join in and see what else they'd like to add.
Thank you, Bonita. You all have done such a great job. I wondered if I might be able to promote Jim Spohr, who is actually the community sponsor of this project. Jim, I'm putting you on the spot right now. He did make a comment about how proud he is of this committee for the great work that you've done. Let me see if I can unmute Jim. It may be that we're not able to do that. Let's try that, see if it works. Maybe not, but he is very, very proud of you guys, and he looks forward to seeing the report and the recommendations as well. Jim, actually, I think you might be live. Can you say hi?
Hello there. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, sir. Thank you for being here.
Can you see me?
We cannot see you, but
okay.
We can hear you.
Thank God. I'm really impressed by the work that was done. I think, you nailed the project. Our vision from the beginning was to take this amazing set of assets that we have here between our region and the Richmond region, take those transatlantic cables that were analyzed by the class last year, inventory what resources we have in the region, how do we marry up with the largest collection of data centers in the world, which is in Central and Northern Virginia, with the high-speed cables that we have here in Hampton Roads, and how do we really leverage that, in a way that can really jumpstart economic development for all the reasons that you guys outlined in your presentation. So we really do appreciate your work. We've used the inventory. We've already submitted it to our joint committee. I was amazed, for example, Sarah Jane, you'd be interested in this. This group actually got into the QTS data center up in Henrico before our committee did. So we were a little envious to learn, what they had seen and what they experienced. So hats off to you guys, and I really do appreciate the hard work.
That is wonderful. Well, because this is being recorded, we won't allow them to share those top secret information, but I know that they enjoyed that trip. So thank you, Jim, and thank you for the opportunity. We are going to just ask a couple of quick questions here. Tricia Russell, one of your class members, asked, what do you see as the biggest hurdle to come? Is there anybody who'd like to take that from the group? Silence. There is no hurdle. It's going to be brilliant.
So if you want to, Mesa, excuse me, Sarah, I'll take that one.
Thank you.
From our standpoint, one of the biggest hurdles, I think, is going to be how big the project is, right? So you have 5 cities in the south and then all the peninsula. Well, as you know, and everybody else knows, it's really hard to get that many people on board from a managerial standpoint, which is probably our number one. It was our number one thing on our how do we move forward with this, because that many people coming to the table, not everybody's going to pitch in the same amount of effort, amount of money. How does that happen? Secondly, I think you're going to have a big resistance from industry, right? You saw the list of people who provide internet service, Cox, all these other people. There's going to be a lot of pushback from those guys, just in general. So.
I muted myself. Thank you so much, Jose. I appreciate it. Well, we want to thank you all so very much for your time today. Gucci, you did an absolutely superb job. I love the Brady Bunch that's right beside you. If you could hear the Civic alumni right now, they would be giving you hooping and hollering and giving you a stand ovation. So great work for the last, 8 months. Thank you all so much, and we will look forward to seeing what happens next with this. So thank you very, very much. So our next community impact initiative is brought to you by the following group of talented individuals. So as we do a quick changeover of our group, we have Captain Vince Baker, we have Andrea Butler, Heather Engel, Dana Fuqua, Julie Heller, Kurt Hoflich, Kathy Karup, Lee Slater, Jeff Wilson, and Chas Wright. This group was tasked with researching how the Hampton Roads region can support the creation and success of a resiliency ecosystem and develop this sector as an economic driver. Resiliency is a key challenge that will continue to be at the forefront of issues facing our region and many others around the world. Hampton Roads has the unique opportunity to set itself apart by specializing in and creating a community and business ecosystem around resilience. This would change this challenge into an opportunity and potentially be an economic driver for our region. It is my honor to introduce Chas Wright, who's the Executive Vice President of Commercial Lender for Town Bank, and Andrea Butler, who will be presenting their findings. The virtual floor is yours. Don't forget to turn your videos on there so they can see you. Fantastic.
Right.
The floor.
First, good afternoon. And make sure that everyone can hear me. So Sarah Jane, let me know if my
you are live.
Voice is coming through clearly. Great.
Yeah.
All right. So good afternoon, folks. Chaz right here from the comfy confines of my office here at Town Bank, and unfortunately, I'm not in my jeans and flip flops like I'd like to be. I'm in work attire. So we're going to try to breeze through this presentation in 10 minutes or less. So let's get rolling. Next slide, please. So here's the gang. This is the project team, the Intrepid 10. On the left there, you can see the team. It was, and I want to say thank you to everybody. It really was a team effort. We divided and conquered this report, split it up into sections and groups, and took groups of 2 and kind of attacked it from that standpoint. I do want to give a shout out also to Andrea, who is on the call here. She was the architect of this presentation. So thank you, Andrea, again. And then our awesome sponsors. They provided great intel along the way, including Paul Robinson with RISE, Ann Phillips with the Commonwealth of Virginia, and Skip Stiles with Wetlands Watch. And I think everyone on this screen right here really had an interest in really the ramifications to the economy and the environment if resiliency is not addressed in some form or fashion over the long term. Next slide, please. So here's our assignment. Really, it revolves around how our region can support the creation of a resiliency ecosystem or industry. This is a nascent but burgeoning industry, and we want to grow it over the long term. And I think it really dovetails with some of the work that Doug Smith and others are doing around trying to diversify our economy. Resiliency really fits right into that. So once again, we took a business plan approach, divide and conquered when it came to the report. We created what we think is a nice roadmap for how to boost this resiliency industry. And then this report will be a springboard for hopefully next year's class to pick up and run with. So that was our approach. Next slide, please. All right, so what is resilience? Boy, this is a word that's entered our lexicon recently when you think about everything that's going on, of course, with the pandemic right now. And this is such a broad topic, but really we tried to frame it from the standpoint of first, trying to plan for any sort of risking events. We're in the middle of one right now. Daily life and work, from economic development, the environment, to, of course, security to community education. Ultimately, due to time and resource constraints and time constraints, we narrowed our focus to really how can we become more resilient when we look at current flooding, sea level rise, and really ensure the long-term success of RISE, which will help grow this, this industry. Next slide, please. So what is RISE? For those that don't know, this is the U.S. first innovation hub for resilience building. It was started, I think, roughly in 2017 with a $5 million award from HUD, and it basically hosts annual competitions. In fact, there was one started in late 2019, a $2 million competition to bring in companies that will address resiliency from a number of different standpoints, from maybe from engineering to environmental to planning concepts. So they really got a nice hub of companies producing really interesting products and services. There's been 22 winners to date. And once again, we think this can really boost the economic growth of our region down the road and help the environment at the same time. Next slide, please. This was the meat of our report right here, the 5 focus areas. This is where we divided and conquered. We had sets of 2 attacking these 5 focus areas on the right. We came up with these focus areas based on conversations with, of course, the sponsors, external stakeholders, expertise we had in-house with the teams, and really looked at these 5. These are the 5 things we thought need to be pushed forward in order for this nascent industry to really grow. Of course, funding, and funding. You could start with funding and end with funding sometimes, especially these days. Political support, workforce and education, community support, and marketing and outreach. So let's dive into those real fast. Next slide, please. So looking at local funding, no surprise, cities are under pressure right now, as everybody is, with budget constraints, what's going on right now. And they can really only handle what's really in front of their face, trying to tap down different fires. So they've got short-term projects, short-term strategies in place. Unfortunately, coastal resiliency as it relates to sea level rise and flooding is a multi-billion-dollar, multi-decade, long-term problem. It's also a huge, huge opportunity. But there is a lot of momentum and awareness building in several of the cities. But it's just hard for them to execute on these long-term, very expensive strategies to address resiliency right now, especially given the time frame. There are a few long-term things we think they really need to do. I'll just put three of them out there right now. One is designate funds, at some point when the time is right, designate funds for gray and green infrastructure to help attack this challenge. Secondly, they're going to need new revenue streams and partnerships, which I'll touch on a little bit later. And then we really need a regional approach to managing this, to funding, to the political side, which we'll also touch on here shortly. Next slide, please. When you look at the state and federal funding, no surprise, really, it's kind of an every city for itself approach to getting federal and state funding. That's kind of how things operate right now. Once again, there needs to be a regional plan, which I'll probably mention a number of more times. But there is an opportunity to work more closely with the Navy. Captain Vince Baker was really instrumental in providing us some good information on the pretty new military sustainability program, which does incorporate the joint land use study that HRPDC did with other localities. And I think there's an opportunity there, given they have billions of dollars of assets in Hampton Roads, for the cities and the region to get together with the Navy and see what they can do about addressing some of our, especially our infrastructure concerns around roads and physical assets. In the middle there, we've got to find a way to fund and support and allow Ann Phillips to execute on her Virginia Coastal Resilience Master Plan. The state really needs to lead this in a lot of ways. We've got to have a master plan which can be pushed down to the localities, and of course funding is going to come right along with that. When you look at funding, there are some signs of life. We've got the Virginia Shoreline Resiliency Fund that was already approved as in existence. It does need to be funded. RGGI, which is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, Virginia is going to join that. So hopefully that will maybe provide some funding to this resiliency fund. There's other ideas, including prioritizing, once again, HRPDC's joint land use study, which has a lot of good information, which we address in the report itself, and then finding funding streams for the PDCs. And ultimately, there are other states doing a lot of good work, and cities, including the city of Miami. So it's worth looking into what Miami's doing. They're elevating roads in certain communities, and really, they've got funding models in place right now. Next slide, please. So I can't do all this without private funding. We can't rely on the federal and the state level. You've got to have private sources of capital. I'll touch on a couple of these things right now. If you look on the right, CPACE financing, this is actually legislation that's already authorized at the state level. There's a number of Northern Virginia cities that have adopted it. Richmond also just passed it last year. The city of Norfolk and Virginia Beach are looking closely at CPACE financing, which basically allows private capital to come in and help fund energy efficient projects, to help fund stormwater projects, to help actually fund anything resiliency related. So this is a really, this is an opportunity for the cities to open up another funding stream. There's a burgeoning market for green loans and green bonds out there. It's mostly at the big city level, but there's a lot of banks getting behind projects that are quote unquote green. And one thing that's not on this slide, and we wanted to explore a little bit more, is we've got two extremely experienced nonprofits in our area. One, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, the other, the Nature Conservancy. They have the expertise, the resources, the fundraising capability to pull off large private and public partnerships. So we really should someone should talk to them in the future about, what they can do to help out with putting together a regional plan for resiliency. And ultimately, the RISE companies and any companies need capital. It's about capital. And they're going to need private capital. They're going to need real estate. They're going to need resources. So next slide, please. The political support. I think the quote on the right from Doug Beaver pretty much sums it up, where basically he says there's not a whole lot of policy direction and support at the the federal or state level, and there's really no playbook to follow. You can pretty much sum that up. That's how DC runs right now, right? But there are varying levels of support throughout the localities and state. We've got a number of resiliency-related bills already passed. I mentioned RGGI. We got the Shoreline Fund bill passed. There's a clean energy bill that was also passed. So there is movement at the political level. HRPDC needs to be central to all this. They've got a great legislative agenda. They've got a really nice recommendations for funding sources. And we feel there really needs to be some sort of regional resiliency authority, kind of akin to the transportation and broadband authorities, which would allow the region to speak as one, not as 7 cities, and to have more political influence, find funding, and really prioritize projects in the future. And then we are a Dillon Rule state, so there's only so much cities and localities can do when it comes to ordinances around coastal resilience projects and initiatives at the real state level. So that's something that is a challenge that will have to be addressed. Next slide, please. The workforce obviously is critical. The RISE companies have told us they're struggling to find educated and skilled workers for their different companies. But, resiliency does touch all these aspects. Education will be a huge part of this, along with collaborations between the educational sector, the public sector, the business community. One idea that is mentioned in the report is a resiliency incubator hub where you can really bring together all the good research being done. And there's a lot of research around this topic at the university level and scientific level, bring it together, try to translate and commercialize that research. So, we think there's an opportunity to really create some sort of hub and maybe incorporate the offshore wind industry and some other industries and really, make a mark for Hampton Roads. Next slide, please. Just a little bit more about the workforce. Once again, resiliency touches all sectors, but once again, we are going to need some more studies around what is the demand for jobs, what are the skill sets and credentials, and can we really ultimately grow this industry, which we hope we can, because it will diversify the economy, it will diversify our workforce, which we desperately need at Hampton Roads, and it will also help the environment. So next slide, please. Community support, it's there. But most businesses and others really can only look at what's in front of them. They have their own budgets and operations to deal with. So while they acknowledge sea level rise is an issue, which everyone knows, and flooding is, of course, an issue, there's not a whole lot of incentive right now for companies to put a lot of their capital behind any of these initiatives. They're really planning for recovery. They're not really planning for prevention right now. Next slide, please. And this is just a general business view. I'm talking with different businesses out there. They really feel it's the government's job to really push this topic forward and coastal resiliency forward. They agree, a lot agree, that there needs to be a regional entity to address resiliency, especially around flooding and sea level rise. But there needs to be incentives created at certainly at the local level and at the state level to help push to really foster the resiliency industry. So the businesses are going to follow, but right now they're not taking the lead. Next slide, please. So I think Andrea is going to chime in on the next two slides around marketing.
Sure. The marketing section mostly focuses on RISE itself, which has the annual challenge for startups that have products and services that address resiliency. And they're doing very well. They're getting a lot of applicants through grassroots efforts. But the challenge now is how do we get more investors involved and get these companies to demonstrate their products in action in Hampton Roads. So we need a robust buyer's market in Hampton Roads, and to get them to stay in the area long term after their seed funding has dried up. So they want to build that ecosystem. Next slide, please. So one recommendation, it's kind of a PR 101, is name it and proclaim it. They've got that first mover advantage, so they really need to plant the flag and let the community know, beyond, just the small, I guess, academic realm and business realm, and really bring it to the lay people in the community, residents, chambers, rotaries, to generate that civic pride, if you will. So one suggestion is have some quarterly events, or maybe every other month, a Rise and Shine breakfast where they've got prospective investors, they've got partners, they've got anybody interested in the topic in the region, and showcase the founders of these companies and give them that platform to talk about what they're doing, and let people get engaged, make it a two-way thing. But I think that would underscore RISE's leadership in this area. I think branding it, I know that they're very interested in being known statewide as a resiliency hub, but I still think sometimes when you name it and proclaim it, you got to go far and wide. And maybe it's America's resiliency hub. Maybe it's the resiliency coast. Maybe there's something, just a moniker to attach to it that, again, will help reinforce that civic pride. And then launch a speakers bureau and get out with board members and folks that you can train to meet with chambers and rotaries and talk about the opportunities, not just the fear-mongering that can go on as we talk about sea level rise and the damage and the inconvenience that can happen with it, but also the exciting economic opportunities by investing in these innovative companies that are addressing it in many different ways. Thank you. That's it.
All right, let's bring it home with some conclusions. This is obviously a multi-billion-dollar, multi-decade regional problem. It's a huge opportunity, again, to diversify our economy, and as I say, what's good for the economy is also good for the environment. They are not mutually exclusive. We do need a broad mix of funding sources, including private. Need a regional plan and a regional authority, we think, to help implement this and really go after some of those federal sources of funding. Of course, cultivate more stakeholders to advocate for Ann Phillips's work and this initiative in general. Obviously need an educated talent pool, and then really look at this resiliency hub and see if we can create and grow an existing incubator. Next slide, please. And then some next steps. We probably have about 20 of them in the report, but next steps for next year's class, communicate more deeply with the HRPDC and cities. Look at some of the local incentives and programs for RISE and other firms. Certainly look at the zoning rules and regulations, what cities can and can't do. Of course, the incubator is a big part of this. And then research other efforts in Miami, Houston, Louisiana. They all have multi-billion-dollar studies and efforts going on around flooding and really coastal resiliency in general. With that, we will open it up to Q&A.
Thank you all so much. You have worked so hard on this, and I'm so pleased to see some of your fellow co-workers there on this project. Thank you all for your hard work. We do have a few questions here. I'll start off with one question from Jim Spore. Can the state of Virginia require long-range resiliency plans like they do for long-range transportation? Have you all covered any of that? Did you come across anything in your findings with that?
Well, I will certainly say that, you know, the work that Ann's doing right now is going to be a long-range plan. I mean, that coastal master plan is going to be a all-encompassing plan, and of course, it's going to look probably from a state level and state asset level, but I think it's going to also incorporate the localities and look at over a number of years how we can become more resilient.
Thank you. And then Tom Steffens, and this kind of goes hand in hand with actually a comment from Giovanna, your fellow class member. He asked about local universities. Do they have courses and award degrees in this area? And I know that Giovanna actually wrote, to your point on connecting with institutions, she would encourage the team to connect with Old Dominion University's new Institute for Coastal Adaptation and Resilience, established last fall, which was thanks to a $3 million grant from Joan Brock. Did you all come across any other programs in the area that the universities are doing? Lee, maybe? Let's see. I thought Lee was talking there. Silence.
He's on mute.
She's on mute. Let's see. Are you unmuted? I think we may be having some challenges with her audio, actually. So that's all right. Give us a thumbs up, Lee. Did we see some more? Yeah, brilliant. Well, we appreciate that. I know that we actually do have on the phone Skip Stiles, on the webinar, Skip Stiles and Paul Robinson. And so we thank them as well for their time. I know you have all worked very, very closely with them on this. And we thank you all for your hard work. We also appreciate the recommendations so that we can bring this project forward. Of course, resiliency is a topic that will probably be with us for a very, very, very long time into the future. What do we think? So thank you all so much. And we'll look forward to having your help for next year's class. So thank you. So up next is a topic that we have all heard from for many, many, many years. It's the mega region. There is a gentleman named Tom France who has been steering this conversation for a very long time, and we are so grateful to him for really kind of imagining this concept. So we have had a project in play for many years that we have expanded over the time frame, and now with the work of the members of the Richmond 757 Connects and the impact of COVID-19, we're seeing more and more regional collaboration, and we anticipate this only to strengthen. The CIVIC class members on this next initiative were tasked with researching and compiling case studies of other mega regions to establish best practices and lessons learned that could be applied to the creation of a mega region here. Creating a mega region to market the combined Hampton Roads and Richmond regions has been a key focus to increase the economic success of the two urban anchors. Research shows that by 2040, the combined regions will account for 40% of the state's population working together. These two MSAs will rank the Hampton Roads and Richmond region within the top 20 MSAs in the country, allowing the regions to compete more effectively for business expansion, legislative agendas, federal grants, and global initiatives. Looking at best practices across other formal and informal mega region areas will ensure the success of this collaborative effort. We're really grateful to the following team members on this project: Julie Angley, Jean Galliano, Brian Martin, Chris McKee, Barbara Nelson, Karen Priest, Kelly Till, Molly Trant, Bonnie Van Lunen, and Anthony Walters. And now I have the pleasure of handing the virtual floor over to Molly Trant, Senior Corporate Counsel for Riverside Health System. Molly, we really appreciate your time today, and I'm hoping that you're on the call. She has had some very big challenges with her internet, which got cut, so she is now on her cell phone. So Molly, are you there, and are you able to make your presentation?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's great
Hey.
to see you.
So yes, the broadband is near and dear to my heart today, and I think it's one of our lovely neighbors, Ferguson's Construction, that just cut our internet. So,
well, we're glad to have you with us, and I'm going to hand the virtual floor over to you right now.
thank you. So I apologize. I had this all ready to go, and then it literally got cut at 2 o'clock. So, with that being said, thank you for having us, and we are very excited to share with you our findings on the mega region for the class of 2020, the best class ever. Next slide, please. Okay, so the opportunity that was given to us was to create a mega region to market the combined Hampton Roads and Richmond regions, now known as RBA 757 Connect. It's been a key focus to the economic success of both the two urban areas. Research has shown that by 2040, the combined regions will account for 40% of the state's population. Working together, the two MSAs will rank the Hampton Roads Richmond region within the top 20 MSAs in the country. We were charged with using extensive case research and to look at other top mega regions to see what we could learn best practices to apply to our mega region. So our goal was to write a white paper that profiled 5 to 6 mega regions, including their best practices and organizational structures based on research and interviews to help the RBA 757 Connect leadership apply a roadmap for our area's mega regions work. The regions we profiled were Greater Washington, Piedmont Atlantic, Southern California, and Cascadia. Next slide, please. So here's where we are with our project status. The white paper is scoped and a full outline is complete. Research on the mega regions is being conducted. The interview script is finalized and the interviewees are identified, and some interviews have even been completed for Cascadia and the Greater Washington area. Next steps would be to complete our interviews, draft remaining sections of the white paper, synthesize 3 to 5 recommendations, and edit and finalize the white paper. Next slide, please. The first mega region we would like to talk about is the Greater Washington mega region. This region is a recently established mega region. It began in 2016, and within 8 months, it was up and running, and they had a blueprint for regional mobility. In 2018, the Greater Washington mega region was an issue convener in the WAMATA Operations Funding Solutions and the Amazon Attraction Effort. And in the 2019-2020, they were able to support the Omnibus Transportation Bill approved by the 2020 Virginia Assembly. The Greater Washington mega region encompasses an area from the Greater Baltimore area all the way down to the Greater Richmond area. We think this is a key point that we could then align their alignment and collaboration opportunities definitely between the 757 and RBA Connect with the Greater Washington mega region to make an even greater mega region. Some of the highlights that we took away for the RBA 757 Connect was the funding and leadership. This mega region's organization definitely requires sufficient funding and a leadership commitment. They both are needed for long-term viability. And then strategy execution. They were very good at having a 3 to 5 year strategy and committing to it and taking the time to execute it. They were laser focused on things that needed to get done, and they're continuing to do that. Also, messaging. Through the interviews with the Greater Washington mega region, it was clear that messaging needs to be consistent and predictable, and that everybody needs to be on board with what the messaging should be. Next slide, please. The Piedmont Atlantic mega region. This mega region is to our south, and it's a diverse, why we selected it was the population opportunities and challenges. Much like the Hampton Roads area, it's a diverse population of growing demographics, age, race, and ethnicity. And it looks like it has similar needs to ours, for example, low-cost housing opportunities and transportation is another huge need for them. They have a strong supply chain centered around major ports in Savannah and Charleston, much like our own ports in the Hampton Roads region. They also have a coastal environment similar to RBA 757, and they definitely have transportation challenges similar to ours. They also have strong educational resources in research and technology and supportive collaboration among universities for mega region. The PM mega region was recognized as a mega region in 2009. Some of the highlights and takeaways that we have from this, for the 4757 from the PM region were to invest in high-speed rail. The Southeast High-Speed Rail Corridor has begun conducting a feasibility study with the U.S. Department of Transportation to create high-speed rail that would go connecting Charlotte to Atlanta to Richmond to the Northeast and Hampton Roads. This would be a huge asset to our region and would help solve social inequity, enhance diversity, and decentralize the workforce and create opportunity. Just imagine being able to get on a high-speed rail from Atlanta and getting to Richmond in within 2 hours. And then also another thing that the PAM region did was they leveraged their universities. They have a university consortium that has been formed, and they're using that to use collaborative research for their mega region. Also, the PAM region says that they're still seeing some regionalism struggles for competitors from the different states, and they would like to move away from their regionalism struggles and work together as a group to combat global issues and compete globally. Next slide, please. The next mega region that we studied was Southern California. We selected Southern California because it is the most established mega region. It was actually established in 1965. It has the largest council of governments, and it is very well organized and structured. It has a global prominence. The Southern California, or the way they say it, Southern Cal mega region, is ranked 5th in global markets based on economic output. Their ports are critical, and they have international immigration has played a critical, important role in their economy. Similarly to RBA 757, they have a strong military presence. They also obviously have a coast, and they have a large port. Some of the takeaways that we would like to highlight for RBA 757 is a strong organization and clear vision and goals. So Southern Cal has been around for a long time, and they have definite bylaws and ways about the ways in which they do business, and they have a definite strategic plan and a mission. Also, the transportation, like the other mega regions, remains a top goal for Southern California. They are looking at the major challenges to move people to where they need to be in a timely manner, as well as move people to more affordable housing in order to get the workforce where they need to be. Southern Cal has had a global focus for a long time, and as such has been able to establish their dominance both within the United States and outside of the United States. Next slide, please. Cascadia is an interesting mega region in that it includes both Washington State and in Oregon, as well as British Columbia. So it has an international mega region aspect to it, which we found interesting to be able to work within not only the laws of the United States, but also with our neighbors to the north in Canada. It is ranked number 16 in the top 29 mega regions driving the global economy. It also is a gold standard for regional collaboration. Along with Cascadia, there is what's called the Pacific Northwest Economic Region, which was founded in 1991 by the late Senator Alan Bluchel, the president of the Washington State Senate. And this Pacific Northwest Economic Region not only encompasses Cascadia, but it encompasses much of Canada and other large states like Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, Montana, and Washington. It's very organized, and it works from both a political and a private business collaboration. One of the main things that the Cascadia region is looking at is transportation infrastructure. The Cascadia Innovation Corridor Initiative was spurred on primarily by Microsoft. Microsoft has a large presence in that area, not only in the United States, but also in British Columbia. And so they challenged those business partners and the governments there to come up with an initiative to get people to move people to where they need to be. And as such, they are working on a high-speed rail that would connect Portland to British Columbia to promote economic integration, enable affordable housing, and reduce traffic. And some of the highlights and takeaways that we found from Cascadia: it has a strong commitment from public and private sector needed. This Cascadia Initiative Corridor meets yearly, and it gets the likes of the Microsoft presidents, as well as all the other universities and large businesses in the area, and the government, the senators and the city mayors and the governors together to come up with a plan for the region. And they focus on they tackle one thing at a time. They also collaborate with academia and universities throughout the region to include them in this Cascadia Initiative Corridor, and they collaborate with research and also to telling the CIC what's coming up and what the young people in the area are looking for and what's needed. It also highlights the importance of planning for upfront planning and assessment. The goal of the group has been to take a fresh look at the area and to see what is needed, and then to get the message out. Next slide, please. Key learning. So these are the kind of the 3 or 4 major bullets that our group took away from the research that we did. We need to prioritize our unique assets. We have a lot of unique assets, including our waterways, our military, our federal labs, and our strong universities. And we definitely need to take some notes from these other regions and continue our structured leadership. Mega region leadership should meet on a regular basis and create and execute on clear deliverables. Secure funding. Funding is key, and I think that is also key from a lot of the other initiatives that we've been talking about. It kind of drives the train. And then also invest in communication. Come up with a message, and have everybody beat to the same drum with the same message. And I think we need to learn something from these mega regions. A lot of them took a while to think of globally, and I think in today's world we need to think globally now and collaborate with the other mega regions around us to really create a global presence for not only RVA 757 but the surrounding areas. 55% of the U.S. population lives within a 750-mile radius of our mega region, and that's significant, and we need to leverage that. Recommendations for action now. We think that one of our recommendations would be to evaluate and update leadership, ensure strong representation across all sectors that drive the RVA 757 economy are included in the leadership group. Transportation, it's a linchpin challenge. It's been a challenge for a long time, and it will continue to be a challenge, and I think we really need to look at it from all levels and perhaps look at the high-speed rail as well. And then in light of the COVID-19, we really recommend that we follow up on the interviews that have been done and should be done, and ask how these more established mega regions have responded to COVID-19 and what they are looking forward to do in the future in response to COVID-19. And with that, we would welcome any questions.
Molly, you did a fantastic job. Thank you so much. I'm giving you a big round of applause, especially with the last minute change that you had to your internet there. So thank you so much. We do have a question. This is from Tom Steffens, and he was asking if you all know how much funding might be needed to propel this effort, and if you might know, if you found in your research what the budget was for the greater Washington area. Would anybody like to take that?
I don't know if Barbara's on. Barbara and Bonnie did a lot of research on Greater Washington. I'm not sure if they have the information for that.
So Barbara, let me see if I can unmute you. Let's see. There you go.
Yes, I don't have, we don't have the information on the budget, but we can follow back up with the folks at GW Partnership and confirm that.
That would be wonderful. We appreciate it. Well, I know that this was a lot of work, and I know that COVID-19 came and certainly changed the workload for you all. In particular, this went across the country, and so we're excited about the fact that this is something that we'll be able to continue working as we move forward. The Richmond 757 Connect is doing an amazing job. John Martin actually was somebody that was working very closely with you all on this project, and he is certainly ready to step up and lead that organization once we get through this pandemic. So I know that your work is going to be incredibly important to them as we move forward. And as I mentioned, you know, we're seeing more and more collaboration. I know that leadership from both Richmond and the Hampton Roads area want to make this work, and we hope that we will be able to help to move this forward. So thank you all so much for your help and hard work. As a quick reminder, if you do have questions for any of these groups, please write it in the Q&A section at the very bottom of your screen. You're going to click on that link. And again, thank you all so much, team. You did a wonderful job with this presentation. So one of the key economic drivers in the region is tourism and hospitality. Our next group had the exciting challenge of researching the viable career pathways for hospitality students in Hampton Roads. One of the misconceptions of the hospitality industry is the career path is more aligned with a part-time job, not a career. TCC is striving to build a hospitality school where people can take courses as they move up through the industry and have a clear career path to establish what these career pathways are. TCC wants feedback from the business community. Last year, the CIVIC Class of 2019 completed a white paper researching the need for the hospitality school in Hampton Roads. And what would that school look like? They researched the top 4-year hospitality schools and interviewed tourism and hospitality professionals, as well as leaders at local institutions and schools to determine what the priorities should be in the development of such a school. They concluded that the school would be best placed at the community college level and that the need for partnerships with businesses for externships would be critical. We are incredibly grateful to the following members of this team: Kathy Kabler, Brian Cuffey, John Harding, Akil Jan, John Klein, Kieran Poulos, Brandy Smith, JT Taylor, and Britton Williston. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Akil Jan, President, Landmark Hotel Group, John Harding, Chief Operating Officer of CHKD's Health System, and Brian Cuffey, Vice President of Development for Gold Key PHR, and they're going to share their findings with you today. Gentlemen, take it away.
Thank you, Sarah Jane, and good afternoon, Civic family. As mentioned, my name is Akil Jan, and it has been my absolute pleasure to have worked with the most hospitable impact initiatives team ever. In keeping with the spirit of hospitality, our original plan was to wow you all with martinis and an interactive presentation, but now you will have to settle for a somewhat drier presentation, but with a big twist at the end. We have thoroughly enjoyed working on the Hospitality Career Pathways Initiative, and let me begin by providing some background on our assignment. Next slide, please. As you all know, tourism is one of the top economic drivers in the 757. The region relies heavily on the tourism industry and has been facing shortages of a trained and available workforce. Our work builds on the class of 2019's hospitality project. Last year's team researched the need for a hospitality school in the Hampton Roads region, and they concluded that the school would be best placed at the community college level with the need for partnerships with businesses for externships, which would be critical. TCC intends to revitalize its hospitality program and enhance its culinary program, and it has expressed an interest in collaborating with industry to do so. Next slide, please. As our primary assignment, TCC asks us to establish career pathways for students pursuing careers in hotels and restaurants. Specifically, we were tasked with interviewing at least 10 professionals working in the subject areas, establishing top career pathways for both hotels and restaurants, and compiling research in a white paper analyzing the viable career pathways for hospitality students. Given the access to leading hospitality professionals, we elected to expand the scope of our assignment to include feedback on TCC's hospitality program and the opportunity for industry collaboration. Next slide, please. So, what was our process for this assignment? First, we developed initial flowcharts of career pathways for hospitality, including departments in front desk, housekeeping, sales, and food and beverage. Next, we conducted personal interviews with 17 select industry leaders and solicited feedback on our initial pathways, TCC, and the opportunities for industry collaboration. We then updated the career pathway charts using the interview feedback we received. Then we aggregated all of the data from the interviews we conducted, and finally detailed our findings and recommendations within the white paper report. In this presentation, we will review the finalized career pathways, summarize the key takeaways, and offer suggestions for next steps. Brian Cuffey will now take you through the career pathways we have developed. Next slide.
Good afternoon. So what we're looking at is one of our sample charts for the career pathways, and we actually have two charts. We'll show you the other in a minute, but both are structured the same. So what I really want to focus on here is just the structure of how this is set up, and then we will go through a more specific example which walks you through how a position moves through these pathways. So you can see first that this chart is set up in three different columns. To the left is a skill-based column, which are positions that are typically just maybe entry-level or, again, skill-based positions. In the middle column are positions that require some type of certification or additional training, typically may be required for these positions. And then to the right, the third column, are positions that require typically a degree or a higher level of education or experience or training. If you look at the rows, the way they're set up, these are the different departments. And again, this chart is based on the hotel operation, and the chart after this is based on a food and beverage operation. But if you look at the rows, the top row is related to the housekeeping department, again, working through that career pathway for a hotel. In the middle, you have the front desk operation and the pathways for those positions. And then at the bottom, you can see the sales row, which takes those positions through the career pathway. And then at the very bottom of this chart, you can see what we've done is included the amount of time that it usually takes to move from one column to the next. So to move from that skill-based position into a higher level position typically takes 1 to 3 years experience to make that first leap. And then to go from the certification column to a higher level of degree education or additional training column typically takes another 2 to 5 years experience. Next slide. So this is the same chart, the career pathways chart, but for a food and beverage operation. And the structure of this chart is the same, but what you will notice is that the positions are different. If you look at the top row, again, the top row is showing the F&B front of house positions, again, which move from skill-based all the way through degree education. And then the bottom section is the culinary, which typically are your cooks and your chefs, and it shows you how they move through their career pathway. That's fine. Next slide, please. So now what I want to do is walk you through a specific example and show you one example of how a position or a person moves from that skill base up to the highest level within their career path. And this example comes from, is an example taken from hotel operations. Next slide. So we start with a room attendant. Everybody, I think, is familiar with what a room attendant does. They are the people who make the beds, they vacuum, they clean the rooms, clean the bathrooms. And there's typically no experience required for this position. This is an entry-level position into hospitality with a pay band of $8.50 to $11 an hour. Next slide. Now, once you've been a room attendant long enough, you're able to then potentially move up into the position of assistant executive housekeeper and then executive housekeeper. And the executive housekeeper needs to be very familiar with what the room attendants do, not necessarily because they do those same tasks, but they have to manage the room attendants. So it helps to have that experience. That's where that experience comes into play, because they don't necessarily do those things, but they have to train the staff. They have to go behind them to check for quality, to make sure they're doing it properly. They establish the processes that they follow to clean properly and clean the rooms in a timely manner. And they also prepare work schedules and things like that. So that's where some additional certification or training is necessary for that position. And again, the pay band for an assistant executive housekeeper is $15 to $19 an hour. And for an executive housekeeper, it would be $38,000 to $65,000 annually. Next slide. So once you're an executive housekeeper and you gain the experience that you need, you can actually move up to become a rooms division manager. And the room division manager is actually responsible for the front office and housekeeping. So again, that's where that housekeeping experience maybe comes into play, but now you're also managing the front office as well. So you're managing those two departments. And now you're also responsible for guest reception and welcoming. You're responsible for handling guest complaints and inquiries. And you're also overseeing some cash transactions and credit card transactions. So again, a little more business experience may be necessary at this point. Typically a degree in business, hospitality, or hotel management is necessary. And the pay band, you can see, has moved up to $42,000 to $75,000 annually. So you can see how the pay band is increasing as the experience and the training increases. Next slide. And then finally, if you're a great room division manager and you gain the experience, you have the potential to become a general manager. And the general manager for hotel operation is basically responsible for the day-to-day operation of the hotel. They are responsible for motivating staff and overseeing all of the hotel staff. They manage, they manage the hotel budgets. They're responsible for revenue management. They set the rates, those types of things. They oversee hotel purchasing and guest complaints. So typically at this level, a 4-year degree is typically required. In some cases, a master's degree may be preferred. So again, it's a higher level of education, but you can see here the pay band has jumped up to now $50,000 to $120,000 annually. Next slide. So really what we've shown you is just one example. The thing that I really want to point out is that that is just one example. You know, the way that the positions and the pathways work, it really is not a linear process. Someone can start out in the food and beverage operation, and they could move over to the front desk operation. And somebody that starts out in the front desk operation could move over to sales. So really the opportunities are endless once you enter the hospitality industry. And now I will turn it over to John, who will talk to you about the key takeaways.
Thank you, Brian. I'd like to give you all a summary of some of the key takeaways. There are many more ideas fleshed out in the white paper, but we wanted to give you a flavor, pardon the pun, of some of the highlights. First, it is important to introduce students to hospitality as a potential career path as early as possible for the reasons Brian just stated. We're aware of some local programs in high schools and probably worth expanding on those and maybe even going up to the grade school level. The second point is there's considerable variability in the career pathways. As Brian mentioned, even within a property, there might be variation, but certainly across properties, there are different types of properties, different business models, hotel brands, sizes of hotels, etc. So for that reason, you should approach these with an open mind, and you'll note that the ranges are quite broad. The third thing, as we did our interviews, we asked hotel and restaurant employers about the skill deficits that they identified as people entered their workforce. And many of the skills deficits that were identified can be incorporated into the TCC hospitality curriculum, either as formal courses or as career development workshops. Fourth, the TCC hospitality program is not consistently or effectively collaborating with Hampton Roads employers. Many of the employers that we spoke with were not aware of the hospitality program or not aware that it had been rejuvenated, or maybe even they'd had an experience with a student from there and they weren't happy with that. And so we're making assumptions about the program. And finally, and this is important, for many employers, experience is more important than education. As one moves through the pathways, likely education will help move them forward into sort of the next category. But it is going to be important for the employers and the potential students that TCC makes its ongoing value proposition known. Next slide, please. So from a next steps perspective, TCC should begin a formal collaboration with hospitality employers on next steps for the program. Many of the people we interviewed are interested and willing to partner with TCC and help further develop the program, whether that be to look at the curriculum, the training, the internship opportunities, etc. Secondly, and this begins to be work that TCC could do, or even the next CIVIC class could do, to develop a network of hospitality employers, trade associations, TCC, and other educational institutions to facilitate internship opportunities and advertise job opportunities. So I'm doing my Pound Hospitality 757, not to be outdone by the Campus 757 group, but that could very well be a project for a future class. We found that in these various silos, there were opportunities that people were not aware of. Third, could explore further the role of making hospitality an attractive career path by going upstream into the education process, whether high school, middle school, what have you. And fourth, I think, unfortunately, we all have this one, which is assessing the impact of COVID-19 on the hospitality industry and hospitality education. And the reality is that everything that I've just said needs to be done in that context. Now, finally, we do have one big next step, and that is to ask your support. We were brainstorming as a team, next slide please, and we said, how could our team and the CIVIC family support hospitality students during this COVID-19 crisis? We decided to partner with the Crop Foundation and TCC to establish a scholarship fund to support students pursuing hospitality degrees at TCC. The Crop Foundation is a local nonprofit whose mission is to foster education and employment for students who are driven to study and promote the art, science, and soul of food and hospitality. And finally, on the next slide, here's our version of Gucci's Brady Bunch slide. This is our team holding our international symbol of hospitality, the pineapple. And we'd like to encourage you all to join us in this endeavor. Our goal is to fund tuition and books for 3 students to attend the TCC hospitality program for 1 year. We've provided a link here on the crop.org website. There's a donate button, and it's important if you choose to do this that you select the drop-down. There it says, what is this for? And to select the Civic Leadership Institute Scholarship drop-down. And our group, this is good news, late breaking news. Our group has donated $3,000 to the Crop Foundation. The Crop Foundation is going to donate $3,000. TCC has agreed to provide a scholarship for tuition and books for a student for a year. And so the good news is we're about 2/3 of the way to our goal, and we really need your help to push us across the finish line. The other good news is we hope this will be an ongoing initiative, and so this is just a starting point. Next slide, I think it's time to bring on the other team members and take your questions.
I want to thank you all so much. I've worked so incredibly hard, and our team let you down. We were supposed to have pineapples too. So thank you so much for working so hard on this. I also want to thank Akil and Brian because they both are working in the hospitality industry right now and have certainly seen the devastation from this crisis. But they have persevered through this project, and I've been really amazed by everything. So thank you so much. One quick comment, Akil, we had somebody say you should have hotel and then vacancy at the back there.
I'd rather have no vacancy. That would be
no vacancy. That's what I think too. That's great. That's great. One quick question for you is with regards to is there any indication of what kind of new training right now, and you may not be able to answer this, that maybe the housekeeping and room attendants might need to meet in order to, get us past the COVID sanitation standards issue that we have right now? Do you all have any insight on that by chance?
I can take a stab at answering that. The the industry has really come around and realized that to get back to any sense of normalcy, we're going to have to ensure the traveling public that our hotels are safe and the guest rooms are safe to stay in. Therefore, every brand family that's out there has come up with different sets of standards, all pretty much the same, but they branded them a little differently. Some brands are doing blacklight inspections of all the rooms, higher touch point cleanings. The rooms will now have sanitizing wipes and hand sanitizer in the rooms for the use of the guest. So there's a whole slew of things. In the public areas, there are certain brands that are mandating ion machines that we'll use on a periodic basis throughout the day to sanitize the air and the surfaces in the public areas. So to answer the question, there are standards that are being rolled out, and we expect that they're going to start getting advertised and marketed to the traveling public very soon.
And I'm certain that these standards will stay for a very long time. If you all look towards your chat, there is actually a link there. So if anybody is interested in making a donation to that scholarship fund, there is a link that Amesa has just posted. You can click on that link there and follow the directions. One more quick question from Jim Spoor. He is asking if you know what impacts might the recently adopted increase in the minimum wage have on the tourism careers and the tourism industry.
I can take a stab at that as well.
Thanks, Akil.
So the increase in minimum wage. So prior to COVID, we were seeing significant wage inflation. Quite frankly, we are already close to that minimum wage hike in a lot of our properties and the properties of our peers. But the question is, what's going to happen after COVID? So, you know, do we get back to normal? Therefore, is there a normalcy in demand? In which case, will there then be demand for workers like there were prior to COVID? In which case, I think we'll see those rates at the same levels. But at the end of the day, I think it's a good thing. I mean, I think that's a living wage. We're getting to more of a living wage. I think it will be easier to attract talent with minimum wage in the right place. But I guess the big takeaway I'd give you is that the industry is already moving in that direction. And I think we were already there prior to even the wage hike announcement.
Thank you. Well, thank you all so very much for your hard work, your compassion, your time put into this project. And again, that link to the scholarship fund is in your chat function. So if anybody wants to look into that and look in more detail, we'll certainly send out information after this webinar as well. Guys, thank you so much. And we appreciate all of your hard work. Our project to be presented today was the product of hard work from the following group of individuals: Chief Larry Boone, Christine Dwyer, Giovanna Gennard, Cheryl Jones, Kurt Krause, Ann Lester, Bob McKenna, Connie McKenzie, Margaret Moore, Tricia Russell, and Vanessa Urick. The assignment was to help to develop a Campus 757 program modeled after Campus RVA. Kurt Krause, member of the CIVIC Class of 2020, had already created a plan for Campus Norfolk and was so excited to share his work and continue to branch out to include the whole 757 region. The idea of creating a Campus 757 program is part of a larger effort by the RVA HR Collaborative and the Hampton Roads Workforce Council's talent alignment strategy. This initiative focused on providing a program that will strengthen the talent pipeline, retain new talent, and would serve as a regional marketplace, both in online and offline, for internships and job openings. It is my honor to welcome to the virtual floor the brainchild behind this, Kurt Krause, President and CEO of Visit Norfolk. Take it away, Kurt.
Thank you very much, Sarah Jane. First of all, congratulations to all my classmates. We've made it, we've survived, we're resilient, we're the best, and we're gonna make next year's class even better with what you all have just produced. So really, really well done. To the four groups ahead of me, wow, you've certainly set the bar at an enormous level. And I would offer that at least, you know, Chaz, with the workforce that you mentioned and the need for the workforce, I think what you'll see from our group here in this initiative, that there's an opportunity for Campus 757 to provide that workforce. Molly, as it relates to Campus RVA, And I think that any strong economy in any region is going to start with a fabulous education system, whether it's a high school or college, whatever the case may be. You can find Boston, you can find California. They started their great economies off of great education foundations. And then Akil and Brian and John, I would offer that we have had conversations with Dr. Constant, and she wants to grow the high schoolers into her system, and hospitality is probably one of the best industries to do that with. So as we move these initiatives forward for next year, I would offer there's an opportunity to somehow blend them all together. With that, can we move to the first slide, please? So the assignment was for us to really gain some gathering, if you will, research, collaboration with working with the Hampton Roads Workforce Council to set up the beginning, the foundation of a campus program. Following some of what Richmond has done. Richmond started it with their chamber. In Norfolk, we started a little differently. We're going to recognize Whitney and Sean a little bit later, but this project could not have gone as far as it has without the wonderful collaboration and partnership with the Hampton Roads Workforce Council. Next slide, please. So the background, as I mentioned, we were challenged to kind of model something after RVA. As Sarah Jane mentioned, that I had started some of this earlier, but the truth is this idea started 4 or 5 years ago with Marcus and the Chief Marketing Officer for Norfolk and the presidents of the local universities on how do we create Norfolk as a college town? How do we get that reputation? From there, last May, we got together again. Greater Norfolk Corporation was part of that. The 5 presidents were on board with it, but then it was Doug Smith. And then Doug obviously has moved on, but the idea was to create this college town. And as I was coming on board to my new role, they offered that opportunity to me to kind of create this and craft this and move it forward. My first step was to talk to Dr. Deborah Diamond, who is the president CEO of Campus Philly. They've been around for 15 years and they've had tremendous success. They too started with 5 institutions and have grown it to over 30 institutions. And it's not just Philly, it's well into Pennsylvania and now into New Jersey. Their budget has grown from $100,000 to over $15 million. So they have had great success. She came down, she visited with us. We had workshops, we had some conversations with next gen professionals as well as our corporate leaders. So the advantage, if I may here, let me get this out of the way. We've got a couple of things that are going on here. The universities wanted to attract the best and the brightest students. The businesses wanted to bring in, not only bring in those students, but keep them here and then give them the internships, connect them with other opportunities, but then ultimately not have that brain drain. Create that opportunity for them, for everybody. One of the takeaways that we wanted to have as well was to create this opportunity for college students to build a network within the community, which started as Norfolk. Next slide, please. So the mission vision, if you will, we recognize that there are 5 institutions, and if anybody has ever worked with college institutions before, you know that they're very proud of what they stand for. They're loyal to those goals and to those missions. But we needed to make sure that we were collaborative together and that it could be sustained over time. That we had one driving mission. So the team came up, quite honestly, with 2 missions. One for the short term, and that was really to develop a program for Norfolk as a pilot, but then ultimately grow it into a long-term mission that would develop for the whole region. Now, the 5 that are here in Norfolk could grow to 14 pretty quickly. There is a coalition, there's a Tidewater coalition of 14 institutions of higher learning that ultimately we could strive for, from Virginia Beach all the way to William & Mary. Next slide, please. So what's the value? What do we really want to do? So we really want to attract a great, diverse, talented workforce. We want to keep that workforce. We want to engage the students between the businesses and education and government. It supports what Jim Spohr is all about with the collaboration on economic and workforce development. Having the Workforce Council part of this really positioned us well into gaining into all of these partnerships beyond just the universities. But where Richmond, our RVA, Campus RVA has, I'm not sure that they have the cohesiveness of the higher education institutions that we have here, that we've started in Norfolk. And then ultimately we want to foster this regionalism and showcase all of our businesses and keep our students here. Next slide, please. So what do we want to deliver? And there are four pieces that we really wanted to walk away from when we were done. More than just creating the mechanics and a foundation. We actually wanted 4 specific outcomes. And one was a college fest. Campus Philly has had great success with this event. They do it the first week of school. It's only for college students. They get sponsors from corporations that really want to connect with the students, and that could be banks, that could be grocery stores, that could be Cox Communications. IKEA could be an ideal sponsorship as we're going through. But you know, do we do it with music? Do we do it with food, having food trucks around? We were just starting to plan this event for the first week when COVID hit. And then we just decided that, you know, maybe we need to take a back seat, because at the time that we canceled it, we didn't know what the universities were going to do. And I'd venture to say that we still don't know what the universities will do, much less what our abilities will be to gather. We knew that Town Point Park would be the perfect location. It wouldn't allow one university to take over from the other as the host. So we were really excited about this event. The Visit Norfolk staff obviously has the experience on putting on an event like this. So we were ready to go as our iconic kickoff in September. We also knew that we needed collateral, both from a standpoint of attracting parents and students, and also getting sponsorships from the corporations involved. So we needed 2 sets of collateral. The photography could be the same, but we needed something to be able to, as a leave behind, as a handout, as something on a digital format, to be able to attract parents, students, and our key stakeholders. Next slide, please. So right into that is the social media strategy, the digital strategy, that we knew a website would be great, that we could repurpose the content to make it relevant for not just the students, but for everybody. We could allow it to have links to, for EVMS. One of their biggest concerns was, how do I find a residence for my doctors coming in? Not so much to attract the best and the brightest, but how do I help them connect with real estate people? For TCC, how do I get them into jobs that they can have while they're working? So there are opportunities as well. From a volunteerism, we believe that if we could get the students connected and engaged from a volunteer standpoint, they're more likely to have a loyalty to the community. How do we get students connected into all the events and all the attractions that are going on? Again, to create that loyalty that they feel so compelled to find a job to stay here. And then lastly, there are a number of opportunities that are available, but none really connect together from an internship standpoint. There's the program that Downtown Norfolk Corporation has. The ports have a great internship program. Everybody kind of has their own, but all want to have it fall under one simple category, so that we can work with the student placement office at each university, that students can go and work through this internship site off of the website, and find internships year-round, not just during the summer, so that it would fit in with their personal schedule and not those of a regular calendar year. So we were excited about kicking this off next year in 21. Again, will be a to-do for where we go. We are close to hiring a media organization to help us with this website and the collateral. So we're moving forward. Next slide, please. So the funding, I was able to put together a budget, a 2-year budget that's far too detailed, and we don't have really the time to go through that. But through that first year and second year, there was some capital dollars that were required. It was hiring a program manager. That job description has been completed. The budget's been completed, but we needed money to move forward. So initially we thought that, well, let's work on a payment schedule from the universities, knowing that they wouldn't have a lot of money, but then let's have the city of Norfolk match it. Before COVID-19, I had a commitment from everybody to provide some dollars to help us get started, but that wasn't enough to get the budget going. So we needed to apply to Go Virginia for at least some money, and then to get a couple corporate sponsors. Then we thought about our website, and can the website generate some dollars? Well, that's when, through all of this, I've been in contact with Whitney and with Sean, and they became more and more excited as we developed this program all along, and they've been terrific partners. So they helped me get through Go Virginia, and through an enhanced capacity grant, we were able to apply for $95,000, and then we hit a glitch at the last minute that required a match. I mean, this was like the day of that we were going to get the award. And along with that, we needed sponsorship letters from a number of localities, not just Norfolk, but we needed to get something from other localities that would benefit from this Campus 757 to show that it was a regional initiative. Well, all 5 institutions came through. I mean, the next day I had letters to provide for Whitney and Sean, and we were able to get letters from Virginia Beach and from Norfolk and from Portsmouth in support of this initiative. That doesn't mean that we aren't going to go after more money, because RVA, Campus RVA, was able to get a lucrative 2-year deal, and we would like to do the same. Now, the downside to that is that's where that money ends. So we need to create a strategy that has a sustainable income. Next slide, please. This is the commercial. Yes, it's the commercial. Let me introduce Whitney, if I can, please. I think Whitney's on. Again, without their partnership, we would not nearly be as close as where we are. I mean, we are able at this point to hire a program manager to start doing the website, to start doing the collateral. We know where we want to go with this, but again, let me give Whitney an opportunity to talk about the Workforce Council, if I may.
Thank you, Kurt. I do want to thank Kurt effusively, because he has really been the nucleus of this from its inception, at least in our region. So it dovetailed very perfectly with what we were working on at the Workforce Council. We each had heard about Campus 757 from different avenues. My job at the Workforce Council, as I think I spoke to you all in September, October, is all about talent. And as we continue to hear that despite the short-term employment situation that we have that's pandemic related, I think we're still looking at an overall long-term shortage of a lot of different types of skilled employees. And it's the type of, talent is about attraction, retention, and development. So we're doing all of those at the Workforce Council. A significant cog in the machine for retention is keeping college students here after they conclude their studies. So Campus 757 is a great utility in that vein. So really excited that this is going to come to fruition. It's gonna do a lot towards this retention, keeping folks here in the 757, and it's the first new initiative that we've been working on in this space, and we're really excited about where we're going. I cannot thank the team enough. Everyone's been wonderful, and the bright ideas and the diligence and seeing things through to completion has been amazing. I won't go on any longer, but the Workforce Council is really excited about this, and you'll be hearing a lot more from us as we go forward. But huge thanks all around, and thanks to Sarah Jane and Amesa and Megan, everybody, for help making this happen.
Thank you, Whitney. Next slide, please. So to have some success, we wanted to come offer some suggestions on measures. And TCC, the first one is more about how do we attract the local high school students, the local Hampton Roads students into TCC, into going to college. And that was one of the greatest successes in Philadelphia, is they were able to show a great progression of students coming out of high school, going into college. We wanted to show post-grad job placement. We wanted to show that our students were going to these events. We wanted to show that we had a great internship program. So all of these metrics were something that we wanted to suggest moving forward on how do we measure how well we are doing. The next slide, please. So the next steps, we believe that the 757 should reside under the Hampton Roads Workforce Council. Obviously, they are the money behind this, and they should be the ones that kind of ultimately oversee it. We need to find a program manager. That program manager for now, because the universities, the pilot program is in Norfolk, have them housed in my office in downtown. But we also, so we need to recruit and hire. So if you know a program manager, please send it to Whitney, send it to myself. We'll be glad to interview that individual. We are ready to go. Start on the website. That's kind of been begun. Some ideas have been floated around. The collateral is easy to do. We need an oversight board. And then that needs to be a combination of the Hampton Roads Workforce Council people, as well as the universities. We cannot let the 5 universities that have started this or reinitiated this, and that have been so supportive and so collaborative on their own. And remember, we have 2 new presidents, Norfolk State and TCC, into this group that we had to bring along again. Excuse me. And then what do we want to do with next year's class, and how do we put that together? So I think that's it. Next slide. Oh, no, we do. So all good programs need a logo. We came up with these 6 logos. We put it to a vote to a number of people, and the horizontal one on the left was in 2nd place, and the bottom one on the right, the stacked one, that's the one that was voted the favorite. So we can change it to anything, we can modify it, but at least to have something to start off with, we now have a logo to work with. Next slide. Here are the wonderful people on our group. Could not have done this without them. They were, even with COVID-19, we were together, we were putting it together, we were always working on it. Great collaborative efforts, great ideas, making sure that we stuck to the regional theme and not just leaving it as a Norfolk program. But my thanks to every one of these people that were on it, to the vice chair, Giovanna, thank you so much for keeping everybody in line and keeping us intelligent and really working on it well. Everybody was fantastic. I would go on forever. And with that,
thank you. You did such a great job, and I'm loving the backdrops here, and I'm loving the hat, Bob. That is fantastic. I love it. I love it. That's really fun. You all have worked incredibly hard, and you are single-handedly bringing the region together. This committee is very diverse, so I'm excited to see the next steps and excited to kind of watch how this grows. So Kurt, thank you for the presentation. I know you've worked really, really hard on this with your team, and you all, thank you. It's exciting, and bringing in folks that are younger, and they're going to have all these amazing ideas, and this is just a great way to be able to kind of house that. So thank you so much. To Whitney and Sean, thank you very much for your help as well, and we will look forward to watching this grow. We want to thank each and every member of the CIVIC Class of 2020 for their passion, enthusiasm, and dedication to bring these initiatives to life. And we look forward to inviting alumni to step up and get involved as we continue this important work. So what are your next steps? I know that's your next question, right? Well, we have to plan for the date for your very special in-person graduation when it is safe to do so. We also encourage you to stay connected with your fellow CIVIC class members. Become a member of CIVIC, perhaps. Serve on the committee. Step up into some of the broader initiatives set out by Reinvent Hampton Roads or the 757 RVA Connects or the 757 Business Recovery Forum. Consider being a mentor to the CIVIC scholars. There are so many ways, big and small, that you can stay connected. And I reiterate my pledge to you. I will connect you with this amazing network of leaders called the CIVIC Leadership Alumni. Before we conclude this session, I'd like to bring back CIVIC's board chair, Kit Choate. Kit, I'm not sure if you're able to come live with us, but I'd love to see your smiling face, and the virtual floor is yours, sir. And we'll hold for a second while Kit comes to the virtual floor. We are really actually very excited that right now we would normally be celebrating big style, right, Kit? We would be with all the confetti and everything for everybody, but we're going to unmute you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you being with us today. And
yeah, the balloons, the streamers, a parade, the whole thing. So,
yep.
So I guess, gang, this is where I give you my charge on behalf of the Civic Leadership Institute. And so what I would say is the theme is opportunity awaits. And that's true for every class, every board chair, every president, CEO has told every graduating class something like that. But I believe today it probably is more appropriate than in years past. In the midst of this pandemic, I think it's easy to forget that the challenges that face the 757, and yes, RVA for you mega region folks also, are still here. Your community impact initiatives were, by the way, spectacular. Very, very well done. And I thank you for the effort and the time that you spent on those. And you have certainly laid the groundwork for impactful measures now and in the future as you pass the baton to not only future civic classes and groups, but to those beyond. So thank you for tackling those issues. They're still here. On a grander scale, as I've kind of told you all before, your actions at home, at work, and in this community during the recovery and reconstitution phases from this pandemic will shape our society, our economy, our region, and result in what Admiral Rock referred to this morning as the new normal, and he's right. I'm proud to report that your Civic Leadership Institute is engaged in the pandemic recovery and reconstitution efforts on multiple lines of effort. I've asked our board committees to identify what I'll call one and done volunteer opportunities to get out there and just support folks like Stephanie Gorham, who you heard from this morning, or Tracy Keller, who you heard from this morning, in a one and done kind of thing. And also to highlight and accelerate those grassroots programs that are directly and personally helping our neighbors. And I think of some of our alumni and board members who are stitching masks and distributing those throughout the community. On a larger effort, at the good graces of Jim Spohr and Doug Smith, who you heard from last week, we've integrated ourselves into the 757 Business Recovery Forum and are recognized, thank you gentlemen, as a sponsoring organization. And Sarah Jane has identified alumni to support specific committees focused on aspects of creating what I'll call that shared new normalcy. That is truly the embodiment of our mantra of regional relationships and regional results now more than ever. And there will be opportunities for all of us, including y'all, to be involved. I would clearly be remiss if I didn't thank three of my favorite ladies on this planet, Sarah Jane, Amesa, and Megan, for providing you all with an impactful year. We would not have known that's what we were getting ourselves into last fall when we first met at the Robin Hickson Theater up in Williamsburg, but their innovation and tireless efforts made this happen despite these unprecedented times. And I gotta say, you know, there's a silver lining. The revamped program days this spring have produced an additional benefit of bringing an additional alumni into the conversation, and I think that's been fantastic. So ladies, on behalf of the board and all of our alumni, thank you. So finally, for the class, we made a commitment to you. I made a commitment to you in Williamsburg last year to provide you a better understanding of the issues, to help you develop more meaningful and broader relationships, and to connect you with the game changers across this region. I've told countless folks, you've heard me say it to you all, that you are the most incredible class, the most diverse class, the most just class of folks I know who are doing things out there other than 2014 that I've ever seen. And you've certainly lived up to that expectation. I thank you for making Civic a priority, for checking your biases, if you will, at the door, and for being present in the moment. Our board and our alumni welcome you to the roles of Civic alums, so please don't wander far away. I encourage you to remain in the Civic community and take advantage of all that it holds by, and here for the Navy guys, this is the 3-time executive officer in me, by paying your dues. And now more than ever, I will say this organization needs your support. Stay close, share your stories and your future successes with us. Sarah Jane alluded to the fact we owe you a closing event, and we'll do that together with a large group of your fellow alumni. So look around for opportunities to serve our community. They're literally everywhere. We face challenges in diversifying our economy, creating a fair opportunity for all of our neighbors, solving transportation needs, battling rising sea levels, and now recovering from the most disruptive global event in our lifetime. It's our responsibility, it's your responsibility as Civic alums to participate in those conversations and creation of solutions. You are the next team of giants who will shape our region. So on behalf of the Civic Leadership Institute Board of Directors, our staff, and our alumni, thank you. Opportunity awaits.
Wow, Kit, I can't say a single thing more other than thank you. And thank you to the Civic Class of 2020.
They're all written down, I cheated.
Very good. I'm impressed. Our final fun task, if you all will just bear with us for one more moment, on the agenda is to share a video that was produced by our very own Amasa Smith featuring the Civic Class of 2020. Congratulations. Stay tuned for more details on that in-person graduation ceremony that will take place in the fall, hopefully. We'll keep our fingers crossed. At the end of the video, this webinar will be over. The Civic Class of 2020, you are officially Civic alumni. Welcome.
What a year it's been. I am so very grateful to have been a part of this year's Civic Class, and I consider it a badge of honor for our class to have endured and persevered through this difficult C-19 crisis. We really must be the best class ever.
It's a wonderful experience, and as many leaders as possible should really become a part of it because it makes a difference in the community. It makes a difference to that leader. It makes me better able to do my job, and it's a blast.
So as a military guy, I spent a lot of time passing through communities, but never really a lot of time getting to know a community and getting involved in the community. And I think that's what Civic has done for me this year.
It was wonderful meeting and learning some amazing leaders from across the spectrum of our 757 culture: business, military, education, nonprofits, and more. For events, I especially enjoyed meeting Thomas Jefferson in Williamsburg and Christine Darden, one of NASA's human computers.
Civic's been a great experience for me on 2 dimensions. First is the opportunity to hear from and speak with leaders from across our 757 region and to learn more about the challenges and opportunities we face. The program has certainly delivered on that front. Even more powerful has been the opportunity to get to know my classmates and develop what I know will be lasting friendships and amazing network here in the region. Our class brings an amazing diversity of experience, education, and perspectives.
Each month on program day, we met the mayors, got enlightened by the Hampton Roads players, met the legends of NASA and toured the naval base, experienced poverty firsthand, now we'll spread more grace.
I'm Lee Slater.
And I'm Kieran Polis.
And we are proud to be a part of the Civic Class of 2020, the most resilient class ever.
Civic has impacted us in so many positive ways, including the personal relationships that we have formed and the community connections that we have made.
Kieran and I have bonded over a shared passion for education and particularly our love for ODU.
So I took the opportunity to join Civic, and I'll tell you this, it's been an experience that I'll never forget. I was able to meet some wonderful people, learn about different leadership skills, and learn about the region, things that I didn't know. If you are contemplating joining Civic, don't do that. Just join. It'll be an experience you'll never forget. Thank you.
As an individual working within the university setting, I have made connections with individuals here in and around the area and have learned so much more about the 757 and all the critical people that help to make this a great place to be.
My acceptance into the CIVIC Class of 2020 was the beginning of an exceptional journey. My port colleagues who preceded me in other civic leadership classes assured me that it would be memorable and impactful, and they were right. Along the way, I've been introduced to many opportunities where I can connect, plug in, and give back to the community too.
I'm really going to value the time I spent with all of you and for the friendships and connections I made. I think the greatest impact for me of the program has just been to see all the extraordinary things that people are doing in this area to make this area a great place to live and work.
I have thoroughly enjoyed the tremendous opportunity to not only engage in working towards solutions impacting regional concerns, but in doing so, building lasting relationships and friendships with some of the best and brightest leaders in Hampton Roads, the 757.
You know, I spent my first 10 years in the Navy in Hampton Roads, and I've always felt like the Tidewater area was a second home. But it wasn't until I had the Civic experience that I really felt like a 757 native. Civic is a total immersion in the community, and it highlights challenges and opportunities.
One of the things I value the most from participating in the Civic Leadership Program is that it introduced me to people who are passionate about what they do and who are really interested in making this area a better place to live, work, and play. We had such a diverse group of leaders in the class of 2020, and it was informative and valuable to hear different perspectives on issues facing our community.
Getting to know and meet people from all walks of life and all industries, hands down, that was incredible. The thing that impacted me the most is, I'd say, the historical perspective. We got a chance to see all 7 cities, and I think during that time I learned some rich history about our area.
Serving this year as part of this class has opened my eyes to the richness of the Hampton Roads area, a place that I have lived most of my life. I've learned more about how our different cities operate and how much cooperation takes place between us. We are stronger together, and Civic has opened my eyes to see that.
As a relative newcomer to Hampton Roads, I really appreciated the strategic overview of the area as well as the challenges that face us for the future. I also enjoyed the sessions with each municipality, where we were able to learn more about what makes them unique and what their upcoming priorities and challenges are.
Others should participate in Civic for the amazing exposure to all of the various initiatives across the region. I really look forward to seeing what we get to do in the future, both with our class and with classes that follow us. I've been very proud and grateful to be a member of the class of 2020, the best class ever.
My experience with the Civic Leadership Institute this year has been a phenomenal experience. It's just been awesome. First, I had the opportunity to meet so many leaders in the Hampton Roads community, so many people that I hope to have long friendships with after we complete our year this year.
But more importantly, I've really learned a lot about our area. And by our area, I don't mean just Newport News, Hampton, or Williamsburg, Norfolk, or Virginia Beach, but I mean the whole region. And I've learned a lot about the collaborative efforts going on in the region and how we can help each other and how these connections will be lifelong friendships and things that will change, I hope, our entire community.
A number of the experiences have been so rewarding and very much top-notch. Thinking about the behind-the-scenes tour at the naval base, that was truly awesome, going on the ship there. And hearing from so many nonprofits that are vital in the community, that was a really, really rich experience.
One of the things I valued most about Civic is the role it plays as a convener of leaders from a mix of sectors: aerospace, higher education, nonprofits, the military. Civic brought us all together, and here we are working on solving complex regional challenges to help the 757 flourish long-term. This year, we set off to explore our community and discover the links that connect us all. The new perspectives I gained from these experiences revealed how interconnected we truly are and the active role we can play in creating social change.
CIVIC gives the resources, the tools, and the connections to truly make an impact.